I don't know. I don't know if you lost me or not. I mean, I'm
Oh
still
wait.
here, but
Oh, I see the problem. Okay. I have I have this thing called Loopback which I just installed because I realized that if I wanted to listen to Spotify while I'm streaming, I would have to I can't publish that audio. So I had to download this program that lets me pipe audio to like different places. So it's
yeah,
really tricky actually to like make sure that certain audio is only going to like OBS and certain audio is only going
right.
to like my headphones. So, um, now I think if I, will I get a DMCA takedown if I start playing this music? Okay, sick. All right, I think I got it.
Nice.
All right, and now sick. So I'm listening. Sick. So I get to listen to Daft Punk while I'm talking to you, and I don't have to get taken down.
Nice.
All right. So the spiel about why pies matter. So America is a land of surplus. It's always been the case. We have all of these resources, and we are an island that's far away from anyone else, so we can kind of fuck around and do our own thing with like protective land safety and whatnot. And when people came over to the US, there were like literally like thousands of varieties of apples. And what did people do with all of these apples? Well, it was too much, and so we started making cider. We tried to preserve them. We'd make them into pies, right? Because it's like fuck, like these are great. These are fantastic. Um, and go figure, like they actually like make you healthy. And so we spent all of our so much time in America like making pies, but unfortunately, because of a cultural shift, the idea of a pie is like waning. And it's waning because
Hmm.
it's always seen as like grandma's thing. It's like right, it's grandma's. It's like this old America. It's Americana, and right, every cookbook ever or any that has like recipes for like desserts, right? If it's American, it has apple pie in there. But because we are more divided and isolated with ourselves, we don't make pies because every pie recipe out there, it's meant for like 8 people. There's 8 slices. You're not going to have a pie by yourself. You're not going to make it and eat it by yourself, so why should you make it? Now, even more important with specifically pies is that if you wanted to have a bakery that sells pies, it is like probably the worst item to sell compared to any other confectionery like item, because you have this moist filling that's sitting on top of a flaky crust, and as soon as the pie comes out of the oven, and really truly while it's cooking itself, while it's baking, it's starting to degrade in quality because that moist filling they're mixing, and at some point it's just you can't sell it anymore because it's a mushy mess on the bottom. And so that is like a ticking time bomb for every bakery because that's so much risk for trying to like make and sell pies. So pies matter a lot because it's embracing an idea that, as well as I'm sure you can find this in so many other different facets of like America, but like specifically I care a lot about pie because I find it, like you said, endearing. It's a very endearing cheesy thing, and everyone has this like memory of an apple pie, right? Like the feeling of walking into a house and smelling it baking. It's very visceral for people. And so um what I have kind of taken it upon myself to do is reinvent a pie, but for the current state of social affairs, if you will. And how do you make a pie in a world that's isolated? And it's like, well, you could start by separating the filling from the crust so you can make them separately and not have to bake them together. So when you want to have pie, you make it just in time. And the added benefit here is that the quality of the crust and filling will go up because you can spend more time on the filling without having to worry about the crust. You could make the crust ahead of time. You could buy it in a store and just focus on making the filling. But it's distilling down a pie to what it is, and that's like in most often, almost every single recipe with pie, it's in season ingredients. Like there's very truly very few pies
Yeah.
that are like, off the shelf stuff that you get, you throw it together. Like, yeah, I guess you can do that with a pumpkin pie. And like you get comparable results. Like if pumpkin puree in a can versus like a fresh pumpkin. But things for apple, you cannot have canned apple pie. You cannot have canned blueberries. You can't have canned strawberries, cherries, whatever. It's like you have to have those fresh because the volatile compounds, as soon as you harvest them, you're losing that and you're losing the flavor, and you can truly taste that. So what I really want to give to people with, and I'm calling it Pi Squared. Unfortunately, there's a book published, Pi Squared, that I'm like competing with the SEO for. But Pi Squared it's like basically a square pie crust, and then the filling gets placed on top of it, and it's just like an apple pie slice, but you separated the pie filling, the pie crust, and it can let people embrace the nuance of the season and the place that they live in and what is growing. It lets them connect with things, and it does so in a very appealing way, right? At the end of it, of making a Pi Squared pie, you have pie. And everyone wants pie, but no one knows how to make it, and no one knows how to get it. Because it sucks. It just sucks because it's probably been sitting, because it's been made at 6 a.m. when the bakery opens, and it's been sitting in the counter for the whole day. And, you know, if you're getting off of work and you want to pick it up, it's been sitting the whole day. It's just not going to be good. Or if you go into the store and you buy a Marie Callender pie and you bake it, it's not going to have, you know, grandma's apple pie feeling to it, because grandma used fresh ingredients, and that's what you taste.
Yeah.
You taste the freshness, you taste the nuance, you taste the care. And without that, it's just, you're not really having a pie. You're having corporate America's like shat out version of it, right? And it's just like, you know, and it doesn't feel right. It's the uncanny valley of pies. Yeah.
That's a very philosophical take on pie.
Yeah, I find it really important because things like people's reaction to things like the flag, the U.S. flag now, it like kills me inside, because I'm like, that reaction is specifically what the founders of America did not want to have happen. Like, the founders of America were really truly like hippies, in my opinion, right? They were like, okay, how do we make it so that the king doesn't happen again? And it's like, well, let's have no one person hold power for too long, and let's keep having like a fluid exchange of power. Like, that's incredibly hippie for that time. Like, sharing things, right? Go figure. You can share power, and that's okay. Like, we're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, when you're talking to me about pies, there's a YouTube channel that I came across some years ago, I don't know, called Townsend's. It's this guy. Yeah, it's this guy and his friends or family or whatever.
Oh, I'm not subscribed? Oh, shit.
So, when I'm listening to you, that feeling of Americana,
yes,
I get that from that channel a lot, because, you know, he's all about the lived experience of, you know, late 1800s, mid to late 1800s America, well, and you know, earlier too.
Yeah, like this is the shit that I live for. It's like remembering the things that like have mattered for so much of history. Like, and there's so much of history where the blacksmith, he's the mechanic. He's like the like, he's the guy that just fixed stuff, and he probably felt like a god to so many people, right? He comes back like with a sword, right? He just makes a sword. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, he that Townsend's guy did a video recently. It was something like what would a McGriddle be in the 1800s or something like that. And and they got, you know, a McGriddle sandwich, you know, the egg and cheese muffin thing. I don't eat McDonald's, by the way, so
I don't eat McDonald's either.
Here
you go.
I think I've had one of those when I was a kid.
1773 apple pie.
Yeah. He does a lot of those kind of just food items that were just so foundational to America, using authentic ingredients.
Yeah.
And the one about the McGriddle, he caveats at the beginning, like, it's very unlikely that anybody in the 1800s would have thought to put ingredients together in this way.
Yeah.
But if we were to do it, what would it look like? And so they custom blacksmith these little rings to make the muffin, the portion of it, to put the egg on and whatever. And and they made it with like authentic cheese that existed from the era. And when you were talking about like a Marie Callender's pie versus like a homemade pie, right?
Yeah.
There's so much that we can do with pies. Like, I was looking at your Instagram with all those pies, and if we're talking about it like in terms of like Americana and whatever, pies, like, they wouldn't be made back then. I don't think. You're a pie artisan.
Yeah.
And I think, pies used to just be more practical. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was just like,
it's just you have a bunch of leftover shit from your harvest. What do you do with it?
Right.
All right, we'll just toss it in with a dough.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting that it's kind of like a new authenticity in that we're in a very super abundant material condition now, right? You can go to a store and there's tons of ingredients there. Now, you're in the Pacific Northwest, so you have a unique local
it's
economy for food.
Everything.
Yeah. Here in Texas, not so much. So people try, yes, but it's still. I mean, the climate here is quite harsh, and and there's just not as much of a social impetus to explore local as there is up in the Pacific Northwest. But anyway, I guess overall what I'm trying to get at, the kind of thrust of responding to that philosophical dissertation on pies, is that, like, I think there's like a nascent movement in the U.S. of people who really want they want to feel that authenticity again, because we've lost it.
Yeah.
Everything has become the Marie Callender's pie. And I think that
and actually, so to elaborate on that, like my feelings about it, I find it really interesting, like my stance on this, because I used to have such a visceral reaction because I grew up in stainless steel America of like the suburbs and everything that comes along with that. And I had this visceral reaction to like mayonnaise or American cheese. But I kind of have this newfound appreciation for it, considering the engineering effort that goes into making those products. And the fact that American cheese is like, they scientifically engineered the perfect melty cheese by inventing like sodium citrate, which they add to it to give it that melty thing. And now knowing that principle, that American cheese, like Kraft Singles, has sodium citrate, you can turn any cheese that otherwise would be too hard to melt, like something like Parmesan, and you can make it into melty cheese. And the reason that works is because when you have like a harder cheese, a lot of the moisture and has been driven out, and so the calcium like ions like bind really closely together. And so when you introduce sodium citrate, they kind of relax a little bit. And when they relax, you can have more like fluidity, like when you expose it to heat, versus the calcium kind of like squeezing really hard in heat and squeezing out all of the moisture.
Yeah.
So American cheese is actually fantastic, but it has to be used correctly, in my opinion. You can't just toss it on something. Like it's just not good. Like people might throw it on for like nostalgia purposes, but like truly the way to use American cheese is by incorporating other very fine cheeses, like things that have much more robust flavor, and you can make incredible mac and cheese with that.
Yeah, by the way, speaking of that, like you're in a region, there's a company called Tillamook, and that's like the lowest I'll go on cheese now.
Oh yeah,
Tillamook. I started. Yeah.
Oh, that's America. That's new America, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Tillamook, where it's it understands quality America, the new wave America understands quality and will reject anything that's less than like some threshold of quality.
And
Like,
that perfectly represents my attitude towards cheese now. I won't buy anything lower in quality than Tillamook.
no,
That is my baseline now,
yeah.
you know?
And to be fair, it's like a lot of what we see in grocery stores are remnants of a time similar to now, where
Well, the post-war period, the
yeah,
post-war period of cheap abundance.
yeah, cheap abundance. You can manufacture. Everyone's super excited to get these products out, but now you have these corporate strongholds of groceries. And actually, I'm reading this book. This, I think I told you, The Secret Life of Groceries, The Dark Miracle of the American Supermarket. And it's like amazing. It's amazing at the deathly efficiency of what we have built with supermarkets. And there's really nowhere else in the world that quite does it like us. And
Yeah.
for all things that are good and bad with it, it exists. And it's like a marvel. It's truly a marvel.
Have you seen that picture of Boris Yeltsin when he came over from the Soviet Union? You know, this was like
I can show my screen.
you know, the
too.
Cold War is wrapping up, and he came over on a diplomatic mission.
What's the
You
name?
still there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Boris? Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Boris Yeltsin. Just
Boris.
search for like Boris Yeltsin diplomatic mission U.S.
Oh, yes, the guy, the Soviet guy. Yeah, I love this story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he comes over and he sees our supermarkets.
Which one was it?
and-
It was in
and-
Texas. He came to Texas.
Right, because Bush was president, right? So, and the Bushes are Texan, and that makes sense to me. I mean, I don't know that, but I'll, probably. Probably was a Texan. But anyway, there's this famous picture of him,
Yeah.
and the rumor has it that the CIA slipped LSD to him.
Oh my
I don't,
god.
I haven't confirmed that, but that is a somewhat substantial rumor that was the case. And it makes the picture a lot more fun, by the way. But even without it, Boris Yeltsin believed that that the administration had set up a fake grocery store
Oh wow.
to impress him,
Wow.
because he was so taken aback by the abundance of everything, that all the shelves were fully stocked. There was an unending array of variety, and it was so beyond. And you have to, the significant thing to me about this is this is Boris fucking Yeltsin. This was the premier or prime minister or whatever the fuck you call it in the Soviet Union. The top dog.
Yeah.
And this man was so taken aback by what a typical working class American's experience is, that he thought it was fake. And yeah, I just thought that was just an interesting thing, talking about the
do you see my
revolution
screen?
of grocery in the U.S.
I
I'm on my phone. No,
Oh, you're on your phone,
I don't.
okay.
I can't see it.
There's a picture here called Evil Capitalism, and it's like a regular supermarket with but overview top view, so you see like every product in every aisle, and then it's like in quotes like fair socialism, and then it's like a completely empty supermarket.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna have to jet because I got to get back to businessing things.
Excellent.
But I'll try to make it to your 6 p.m. stream, and we can maybe continue and talk more about
Hell yeah.
programming paradigms as well. Maybe we'll find a conflict between apple pies and programming paradigms. I bet that exists.
Oh, don't even. I can figure it out. Give me a few hours. I'll figure it out.
Dude, we're gonna spend hours talking about food and code.
Because truly, this will be the last thing. Honest to God, have been trying to build a recipe site for years now, and that is what has led me to ProtoFlow, because I wanted to build a recipe site to make Pi Squared something that could be in every single household, and that anyone in college, wherever, they can do it. And then I started realizing there's so much complexity here. Well, what if you
Mhm.
don't have like a big normal oven, and so preheating to 350 is actually more like preheating to like 300, but you don't know about that? How do you address that problem? And so I've all along the way I've been
Huh.
developing these like tools and techniques to help people no matter who they are, what equipment they have. If they wanted to make pi squared, they can do it. Now, as I have tried to write this recipe site, I've rewritten it 7 times because I could not find a tech stack that I was happy with. Because this was a side project. And I'm like, every time I sit down to write it, I'm just like, holy shit, what the fuck is React? What is JavaScript, Node.js in the backend? What am I looking at? These types are so complicated. I have no idea what to do. There's
Mhm.
no principled advice that I can follow to write this. And it led me to like, well, what if we just take what massive corporations use every single day across tens, hundreds of thousands of engineers, protobuf, and then we build applications on top of that because that's how they manage to scale at infinite size.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been building. And I'm just like, this makes so much goddamn sense to me. I just need to figure out how to like sustain it. I just need to like understand how to make sure that this idea continues to go even in my like absence.
Yeah, we'll have to talk more about that because I think
Yeah.
there's some interesting opportunity to mix in deep learning into something like that, you know,
Yeah.
because like I'm thinking like imagine a recipe site where you can go and you can just put in everything you have on hand and the equipment you have, and it can just generate a list of
Yeah.
recipes for you, and then you can choose like food type or what, you know, whatever, all the different qualities of what it is that
I
you
already
want to
have
eat.
that. So like on wherever dot com, wait, wherever dot com. So this, I built this, and I scraped every, oh, I guess maybe it's not loading right now. I scraped every recipe site that I normally go to. And so like America's Test Kitchen, Serious Eats, New York Times, Epicurious, and I that's the data set that I've been using, and I have this insane like data schema now of mapping out like all recipes and equipment and stuff like that and how it relates to each other. And I've also found the USDA's food database, which has a mapping. And this is actually one of the first reasons I wanted to build a recipe site because I had never seen it. I wanted to go from when I'm baking, I want to go from volumetric units if I see that in a recipe to mass units because volumetric is so unpredictable how much you're actually scooping, as well as it's just so much easier to measure by weight, especially when you're measuring out a bunch of dry ingredients. And so
Hmm.
I found the USDA food database, which has the data source that has all that data, and that's also integrated into the data schema. It's like if you have scientific standards for certain categories of foods, you can incorporate those. And that's how a lot of like diet things work. And actually, what I realized is that there's a pretty big play here in terms of like catered recipe suggestions. So a lot of personal trainers will put together like food diet plans for people, and there's like APIs that exist like Spoontacular, which I think a German company that has an API that you can hit to generate stuff like that. And so that's a business. I don't know what the market for that is, how big that is, but I can't imagine it's terribly big. And that's the another thing is unfortunately with food, the markets, if you're not in it, you're out of it, and then you have to like break
Yeah.
into it in some like pretty substantial way. So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, man.
all
Well,
right,
hey, I
dude.
gotta hop on an interview here in just 5 minutes.
Hell yeah.
I'll